Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is a special Star Wars Day SETI Live. May the 4th be with you. With me today is Jeremy Gregg. He's a member of our advisory council and a managing director at Arabella Advisors. And someone's echoing. Oh, I know where. Okay. Also with me is Thaddeus Matula, who is a filmmaker. He has directed ESPN 30 for 30. He has won several awards for that. He is also working on a feature film based on a science fiction short he made in his sophomore year in college called The Dreamer, and that is in the works and hopefully will be coming into production later this year. And of course, also with us is Seth Shostak, who is a senior astronomer here at the SETI Institute. So we are here to talk about and celebrate the science of Star Wars. We are not here to pick apart the science of Star Wars. We are just here to celebrate it with you. So we will be opening up to questions a bit later. But in the meantime, hello, and thank you everybody for joining me today.
Hello, how are you?
I am well. How are you this May 4th?
Well, I mean, it couldn't get any better than today's date. So we can just end there. May the 4th be with you. That's great. That's like everything else is gravy from here on in. We have achieved our goal. But thank you for having me on with you guys. It's an honor to be here. And yeah, that science fiction film. There's a lot of other things that I'm working on. A number of them are documentaries. I have 2 science fiction films coming up. I sent that note to you just because it's a story that's very much inspired by Star Wars, and for me, like my becoming a filmmaker or wanting to become a filmmaker growing up began with Star Wars. So I'm grateful to be here to talk about Star Wars and SETI. But yeah, that film, The Dreamer, is kind of like born of that growing up in and wanting to go to a place where the good guys won, and where there was hope. And it was just a place that I could escape to as a child. And now as an adult, I utilize Star Wars almost every day as I talk about how we create film and how we hit different beats. And it's like, this is the part of the film where they go to the cantina. And it could be totally, the film we're editing is a football game happening at that time. But anyway, so thank you for having me. And Jeremy, thank you for inviting me on this. I would say that I have to pay you to say thank you, but I don't know what else to do, because it's just great to be here for SETI and for Star Wars.
Well, you can always make a donation to the SETI Institute on May the 4th in recognition of our campaign. So I want to
that's right. So the reason that we're not just Star Wars Day, the other reason that we're doing this is because Jeremy has very generously basically funded this campaign, where if we raise $4,000, Jeremy will match all of that. So we are fundraising today. We are a nonprofit organization. So if you make a donation, the donation link will be in the various chats on YouTube and Facebook. I'll get it into Twitch in a few minutes. And if anybody wants to jump in, we're going to be thanking some people as we go. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Jeremy, thank you so much for sponsoring this. So Jeremy, let me start off with, why are you sponsoring this today? What inspired you to make this link between Star Wars and SETI and to start this campaign?
Well, I really appreciate that, Beth. And thank you and SETI Institute for the work that you do and for inviting me to be a small part of it. It was a real privilege to be able to invite my own children to be a part of this. So I was probably around my daughter's age, the daughter who was Princess Leia in our little video that we made earlier, when I made my first charitable donation ever. And it was to the SETI Institute, because I heard about the organization. I learned, I was inspired as a kid born in 1978. I grew up with sort of Star Wars in the background, and just really have always had a yearning to look towards the stars and just to ask that question, are we alone? And when I learned about the SETI Institute on my journey, I made my first charitable gift to the SETI Institute. And now, 25 years later, I've spent an entire career in fundraising and philanthropy, and it all got kicked off with that first gift to the SETI Institute. So now serving on the advisory board, serving on the board's development committee is a really interesting full circle, bringing me back to where it all began with the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And I think the thing that has caused me to want to do this is, as I've been reflecting on my life and the purpose of that life, and just realizing how, to me, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence is not simply a scientific quest. It is a quest of deep meaning for humanity. And I think it's tied to human resiliency. And so I've put together $4,000 on May the 4th so that we can have a challenge grant to support the SETI Institute's incredible work. And I believe that our effort here is really tied to that last element of the Drake equation, of how long we as a species can survive once we've achieved the capacity to have the level of technology we now have. And I believe that the search for extraterrestrial intelligence is deeply and intimately connected towards that deeper search for the purpose of our species and where we're going to go. So it's a joy to be a part of it. And yeah, I think last I heard, I think we're at about 2,600 or so towards the challenge. So hope everybody watching, please donate, help me spend my money and give it to a great organization, the SETI Institute.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. So I just want to quick shout out, let us know where you're watching from right now. We have viewers from Las Vegas, Georgia, Utah, and then we're starting to move out into very far away places here, Germany and Scotland. So if you're watching out there, please let us know where you're watching from. So Seth, what joy do you find in Star Wars? Where are you in all of this? Are you watching them to analyze science, or are you watching them for the fun, a little bit of both?
Listen, it's the inexpensive popcorn. Let's face it, Beth. No, I used to make films. I made a sci-fi film when I was 11. And I can tell you that a lot of people said to me, my God, you made this when you're 11? It's terrible. Because it was terrible. But I do want to say something about Star Wars, because I don't think it's sci-fi. I mean, that's, perhaps, I don't know, sacrilege. It's just heresy to say that. But traditional sci-fi falls into one of two categories, right? It's either loss of identity. Right? I mean, think of, where daddy isn't daddy anymore. So Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you had that sort of situation. The second category is hubris. There are some things man was not meant to know. For example, what motivates women, for example, just as an example. Things humankind was not meant to know. And, the invasion of the body snatchers, the Forbin Project, even Alien, right? These guys go out into deep space and they find these eggs and all that stuff. But Star Wars has none of these, neither of these themes. So I think it's a cowboy film in space. This isn't to say that I didn't go and that I didn't enjoy it, but that's my criticism.
I mean, I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I would definitely say that there's that element of the hero's journey in Star Wars, because we definitely see that in all of the different trilogies, however you may feel about them. And I know that is a controversial topic there in and of itself. So let's talk about some of the potential science that we can find in these movies, though, right? It's not all just lasers and lightsabers. We also have different types of planets, different types of life, really. So Jeremy, do you have or Thad, do you have a favorite planet?
I don't really, but I do have a poster of one. Oh, and I knocked off my my handy light trying to just scoot away. And I can
way behind the camera normally, Thaddeus.
Yes. And so this is one of the planets. That is where and now I'm on point. I have to remember if that is specifically that is where the cloud city is. And so I kind of think of I think we have a place in our solar system that could almost house cloud cities. Seth, what do you think about people building platforms in the upper atmosphere of planets where there could be more of a breathable kind of a mixture of air there?
Yeah, well, in some planets, it would at least be cooler. Venus comes to mind. If you go 20, 30, 50 miles up. It's pretty cool, but it's still just, carbon dioxide and sulfuric acid. And honestly, after you breathe that for a couple of days, you don't really care where you are in the atmosphere. But there is something that to say about that, and that is that when we run out of space here on Earth, and you could say that we've already done that in scenic places like Trenton, New Jersey, what you can do is build orbiting habitats. And there's essentially unlimited room for doing that. And that's probably our future. In future, you will live in space, and the cutting edge stuff will be, you're going to live on a planet. Think about that, Bob. It's not good for you.
All right, then.
So I know that you're gonna like totally debunk the Death Star blowing up and that big explosion, but I want to ask you a question. Like, I've always heard that explosion wouldn't happen, and of course there would be no sound. But how could we see an exploding giant space station?
Well, exploding a space station is one thing that you could do if you got it into your head that was going to be your weekend project. But I think that in the original Star Wars, and only Beth knows the answer to this, in the original Star Wars, they blew up Alderaan, a planet, using the Death Star, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
And it caused a disturbance in the Force. Whatever the Force is, I don't know. I think the Large Hadron Collider is looking for it. But they blew up this planet with the Death Star. Now, just for the fun of it, I just worked out how much energy it takes to blow up a planet the size of Earth, in case that's on your mind. And it turns out
Let's not do that.
Well, it's hard to do it. It's 2 to the 10, what is it? 2 times 10 to the 32 joules of energy for those who keep track of these things. Now, the only way you can get that much energy is by, E equals MC squared kind of stuff, where you convert mass into energy. That's the most efficient thing you can do. If you try to get enough coal together to make 2 times 10 to the 32 joules, that's a lot of coal. So you're not going to do that. But if you do it by just, annihilating mass, you could do it if you had 1,000 Mount Everest's worth of mass. But it's easy to figure out that will never fit in the Death Star, because they don't have much overhead bin space in the Death Star. Just for your next cocktail party.
Okay. And there you have it, Thad. So Jeremy,
Yes.
How about you? Do you have a favorite planet or a favorite creature? Are Wookiees your thing?
It was hard for me to pick. I remember I had a lot of nightmares as a child of being on Dagobah with this guy behind me, and so I remember being terrified of Yoda as a child for some reason. But I don't know. If I had to pick a place to vacation, hanging out with the Ewoks on Endor, that might be, it didn't work out too well for a little while there, but yeah, probably that.
So Seth, forest moon. How can we have a forest moon?
Well, you gotta, I guess you keep the lumber industry out. I don't, how do you have a forest moon? You could do that, but the thing is, if you have too much, if you have a kind of monoculture moon, it's all trees, Bob. Something like that doesn't make sense, because evolution would be sure to eventually produce something like beavers or something that eat trees, right? So in fact, you'd immediately diversify, I think. If the entire planet was just covered with banana plants, for example, that wouldn't last very long, I don't think.
Well,
could you have a moon around another planet that would have the ability to have life like that?
Yeah, you mean sophisticated life.
Well, even, right now, all the moons that we're looking at here in our own solar system, while we can say that, yes, there might be life under the icy crusts of things like Ganymede, Europa, and Enceladus, all of these, do we have, is it possible that you could have a moon that could sustain biological life on the surface?
Yeah, there's no reason why you couldn't, in principle, have more complex life than bacteria. But to get intelligence, you need a certain amount of real estate, perhaps. That's the assumption. But it's not clear to me why you would make that assumption, other than the fact that you might insist on having an atmosphere that you could breathe, right? We have that. If you put our atmosphere on one of these other moons of Jupiter or Saturn, they'd be very decorative for a while, but pretty quickly, because of the low gravity, they'd leak off. So, maybe you just do need a minimum amount of mass. I mean, there was Pandora, and they did have unobtainium, whatever the heck that is.
You're switching films
ISO.
there.
Wrong genre.
So,
Wrong genre.
I mean, so we talked about favorite planets or whatever in Star Wars, and Jeremy, when we get off of this, I'm putting in $200 for the two suns that circle why am I blanking on names of
Tatooine. You're talking about.
There you go.
The
Thank you. You said Alderaan
Tatooine.
earlier. But my favorite moment in all of the Star Wars films is when Luke steps up to the binary sunset of Tatooine, which is the planet that's farthest from the center of the universe, as Luke likes to say, or the galaxy. But that moment where he stands there and he looks out, I mean, like, I take a pause most days that I remember and can to go look out at the sunset, and that idea of hope and that just yearning to do more has always infused my cinema and my life. And so $200 for the binary suns, but can you tell us about binary star systems?
They're very common. In fact, there are even triple star systems and even at least one quadruple star system. But the big advantage is if you're making a cowboy film, Dad, then they can ride into the sunsets. So you have that. But it turns out that actually it's quite possible to have a planet like Tatooine because if the planet orbiting these stars is at least 5 times farther away from the system than the two stars are to one another, it's not a big deal, then the orbits will be stable over long times. Or they could orbit just one or the other of them if they're close in. So yeah, we've already found planets around double stars. I don't know if, Luke lives on any of them, but.
All right, let's take a moment just to say hello to some people who are watching from Alaska, Washington, Seattle, California. And once again, we're getting further out. We've got New Zealand, Colombia, South Africa, Denmark, Brazil, Indonesia, Northern Ireland, and apparently even Venus. So welcome from Venus. Thank you very much for tuning in on your radio waves over there. Sorry about the clouds. Couldn't do much there. And also, we received a donation from Bill on Facebook. So thank you, Bill, for the donation. Again, we are doing this as part of a fundraiser, courtesy of Jeremy, who will be doubling our donations up to $4,000 today. And we are more than halfway there. So keep those donations coming, you guys. It's great. And we will continue to put out wonderful science outreach like this today. So let's get back to Star Wars. All right. I also love the image of that Tatooine double sunset. But I'm curious, I mentioned that we have these icy moons, but one of the other places that I think is fascinating is Hoth, which is this icy planet that somehow people have managed to settle and live on for who knows why. I mean, yes, you can set up rebel bases someplace no one else wants to be, but everybody seems to know it's there. So Seth, again, this comes down to what kind of conditions can humans and other similar life forms survive under? That's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, you could survive there. You could, you just need electric socks and a nice fur underwear or something. I don't know. Of course you could do it because we have technology that would allow you to live there. But the thing about Hoth that struck me is that the transport systems didn't look to me like they were quite up to snuff in terms of technology. I mean, they get around on animals. They've got interstellar travel because that's how they got to Hoth, presumably, right? They've got laser weapons. They got all that. But, they seem to commute by flea-bitten beast. And living here in the Bay Area, I don't see many commuters into San Francisco riding giant mammals to work. I see that didn't strike any chords.
Well, you could go back to another New Jersey joke with that. I think there's some rats that are big enough to ride to work. I love you, New Jersey. I was just making a joke because of what Seth said before. I'm going to segue it to Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy, can you talk about the hope that Star Wars inspires in us and like how looking to the stars is also about hope, because that for me is like the biggest tie between these two things of like, you know, wanting to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, or at least that's why I was attracted to both of these things as a child and as an adult still.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, our capacity for wonder is intimately linked towards what I think the SETI Institute is established to answer, or to at least to seek. And that is to look out there and to ask, you know, are we alone? And within that question is a question of who we are right now and what's our purpose here. And so I'm really grateful, by the way, to Bill and everyone else who's donated. I know to me, it was always surprising. I think we have, you know, the SETI Institute has millions of followers, thanks to Beth and their incredible team there and their work. But we are a nonprofit organization. You know, we're not entirely reliant upon RFPs from the government and all those things. We do need several $1 million a year in donations, I believe, just to keep the doors open. And so I really hope that everybody will join me in placing your money behind the new hope that is SETI and what SETI Institute stands for, and all that it is doing. But yeah, to me, I think the link between Star Wars and SETI is pretty clear in that it's, you know, an attempt by humans to understand that which we currently can't. And I love the story of Star Wars for so many reasons, not necessarily because of the accuracy of the science, as Seth can point out, but just the way that it creates a world of wonder and hope that you can almost imagine, other than the lightsaber potentially, you know, being possible. But actually, I've got a question for Seth, something that I've always kind of wondered as a kid. You know, one of the beautiful things about Star Wars was like just the variety and the diversity of life forms that were constructed within that. And I'm curious, Seth, I mean, we've been leading the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. One of the questions is sort of like, what do we think they look like? I know there's the classic like short green man with the large head or whatever. Do we have any idea what, you know, whether other intelligent species will have, you know, similar proportions to us in terms of like, you know, in Star Wars, everyone's a human actor, so they're all about this tall, but any thoughts as to what other aliens might physically look like?
Yeah, I think you can do this. I should point out, Jeremy, of course, in the movies, they always are, you know, more or less our height and so forth, but that's for practical reasons. And also for the fact that you don't need a backstory. If you see some guy with big eyeballs and no hair, with the exception of Chewbacca, you know, you say, okay, that's an alien, and we don't need the backstory. We know what that is. But in fact, you know, you could say, for example, the fact that we're bipedal, that we walk on 2 feet, that's very unusual on Earth, right? I mean, except for birds and maybe kangaroos that really hop. That's very unusual. So would ET actually be on all fours, or on only 2, or maybe 2 out of 6, or what? And you could argue that they'll be on it, that they have at least 2 arms, because otherwise it's hard for them to develop any technology. So they're those kinds of things. We have eyeballs, but eyeballs have been invented many times by Darwinian evolution on Earth, right? Because they're very useful. And having 1 eyeball is great. Having 2 is better because you see 3D. And if you eat meat, it's great to see in 3D. Those kinds of things. But I think that the bigger picture is something different. The you know, the cantina scene would never happen. That there are different reasons for that. But for leaving that aside, the idea that aliens will somewhat look like us or somewhat look uglier than us and stuff like that is probably all wrong, because what are we doing in this century? We're inventing generalized artificial intelligence. And, you know, 2 centuries from now, Beth is unplugging everything in her house. 2 centuries from now, the smartest things on Earth will be machines. And machines really can go colonize another moon or planet. So I think the majority of the intelligence in the universe is probably machine intelligence. And if you ask, what would ET really look like? It's going to be a machine. Maybe not as interesting.
Well,
What
I
about
am here
Go
for the
ahead, Beth.
singularity. Go ahead, Thad.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could add, do you think we're going to survive the singularity? That's probably for a different question, a different day. But I saw a note here on the giant worm in the asteroid. Could a giant worm live in an asteroid and eat the Millennium Falcon?
Yeah.
Well, you know, of course, my first issue with that scene is how close the asteroids are. So that's always going to be one thing that I complain about. But as far as the worm goes, tardigrades can survive in the openness of space. So they have been found on the outside of the space station alive. So it's not impossible, but I think the size is preventative there. I don't see how that part would work. I think you could find microbes, but I think that particular worm is a bit too big for reality.
Good for
Seth,
the
would you
fish.
agree?
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I mean, look, we eat about 1% of our body weight every day, right? Roughly. And so if the worms are eating 1% of their body weight every day, there's got to be a lot of worm feed in there. And in an asteroid, you have some ice and dirt and stuff, but I don't know what the worm eats. I know you're not worried about that, but they are.
Stray spaceships, apparently. All right, so Jeremy, we've talked about what inspired you to be here. What are your hopes for the future for SETI and hey, for even the Star Wars franchise?
Well, I mean, I really believe we have an incredible opportunity with SETI to advance human resiliency and our ability to just survive as a species. That we currently have a project, which I'm really excited about I believe it's the CAMS project, where we're trying to map the night sky 24/7. And it's staggering to me to think that in 2021, with the technology that we do have, that we don't have a 24/7, 360-degree monitoring of the entire night sky at all times. I'm grateful that SETI Institute is leading that. In particular, the fact that that we are investing in India and in an opportunity in a part of the country where we can leverage this project, not only map the night sky there above South Asia, but to provide learning opportunities for students in that part of the world to be engaged in the search. I know it's really important for the SETI Institute that we broaden and make the field more inclusive. I think that's a really important initiative that we have underway to really try to help broaden that, especially with groups like SETI Forward, trying to identify the pioneers of tomorrow and where they are today and to support them. So I love that SETI is not just thinking about intergalactic efforts, but also thinking about like very real, very human projects right now. How do we advance an understanding of STEM technology? How do we make STEM a more accessible field for people of color, for young people, for women in the world to be a part of this effort? And so I'm really excited about that project. And personally, one of the things I'm really hoping is that, if we're successful today, raise the money to help support SETI today, I also want to ensure that we can help support SETI tomorrow. So I've also included SETI in my will so that, I feel like I'm, the Jimmy Stewart character. I'm worth a lot more dead than alive. And when I do pass on, a part of my permanent legacy will be tied to the SETI Institute and hopefully into an endowment that will grow and support this for generations to come. So whatever poor person has to fill Seth's giant shoes when and if Seth ever does retire and step away from the SETI Institute, we'll be able to continue to support that effort. So
they're only a number 9.
So Thad, how about you? What's your hope for the future in science research or in filmmaking?
Well,
even where do you see things going?
Well, I want to bring it back to childhood, and for me, like the reason Star Wars inspired me to be a filmmaker, and the reason I hold on to it to this day, is I think about that little kid on the couch, the kid that could go to this galaxy and have a place again where the good guys won. And when we do something like this, and what my hope for the future of the SETI Institute is, I like to think about who are the kids on the couch right now who want to pioneer and lead the way in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So what I'd love to know is what can those little kids do? What do they need to be studying? Obviously, it is STEM, etc. But Seth, there was a time where I did think about wanting to be a radio astronomer. If I were, say, in junior high right now, what should I start paying attention to? What should I start devouring if I want to do what you do?
Well, I think that any kids in middle school, as they now call it, isn't going to take our advice anyhow. I certainly didn't listen. Are you going to listen to this old guy? No, of course you're not going to. I mean, maybe they'll say something important like plastics, but generally speaking, they don't say very much that you can imbibe. But I honestly think that sometime when you're in middle school, right, between the ages of, say, 8 and 12, so that's more than middle school, but it's not even quite middle school, is it? Anyhow, when you're young, so I'm going to go back to the 8 to 12 years, you get interested in something. And it's not because somebody told you to get interested in it. It's because you yourself saw it happening, or maybe your parents do it or something, and you get interested in it. And it certainly happened with me. I mean, I went to the library every weekend to get books on things I was interested in. And that's maybe the most important thing you can do, because just decide what interests you. That's the thing that you should be doing for the rest of your life. And you'll be finding that you do it for the rest of your life, even if nobody's paying you to do it.
Seth gets paid to do this. It's okay, everybody. Don't worry. Seth's not working for free in his.
Yes.
So we do have a few questions coming in. And first, I want to thank Pride for the donation on YouTube. Thank you very much. We have viewers in Louisiana, Tennessee, and again, Serbia and Mexico. So thank you for watching from all over the world. We are so appreciative and very thankful for the donations. Again, Jeremy is doubling everything that we get today up to $4,000. And we are more than halfway there. So we're very grateful for the fact that you are all supporting our science and our outreach. Let's have a couple questions here. I think this one is for Seth. Would the sun, the stars set at the same time in a binary or multi-star system like they are on Tatooine?
Yeah, no, no, not at all. Remember, those two stars orbit one another, right? And you're probably, the planets probably form, I mean, not guaranteed, in the orbital plane of those two guys. I don't want to put too much Latin into this answer, but you know what I'm talking about. So if they're going around like this, then the planet is also going around the system like this. So there will be times that they do set at the same time, but in general, not, I mean, one's going to set before the other. They'll probably set in the same part of the sky, though. Depends on how far out you are. Why? Do you want to make good photos of them?
I think it's more art at this point.
Yes.
Speaking of art, Thad, how would you portray a civilization? Seth is saying that we're probably, most of what's out there is probably artificial intelligence, very mechanical. Do you think that we could portray a civilization that's almost entirely made of droids, self-sustaining droids? What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I don't think that they would be droids. I'm going to play Seth for a second here and say that if it's AI, I mean, they don't need a physical form to sort of be their individual selves. I mean, obviously they would need that to interact with an environment, but it doesn't necessarily, I would think that the droids of that society would actually be just sort of temporary hosts for the AIs themselves, in terms of I could imagine what kind of, like, if I were thinking about this, which I do for a film, I would start imagining, does one AI take over an entire planet rather than it being multiple on that planet? I mean, I would assume the whole planet would then become the sort of feeding mechanism for that one machine to keep it going. Because I don't know, in terms of Darwin and survival of the fittest, if they're going to be able to find an altruism amongst them. So I think I would use that idea that it's one intelligence that's trying to dominate all the resources of the one planet, and then maybe that there is that one droid that starts to that gets disconnected and wakes up and wants to go out and find its own way in this strange universe. And then it would be all the great stories are of that, that one oddball who wants something more, something bigger. And so that's what I would go with, and have that one droid be on the run from all the other ones that are just, used by the planet to sort of track them down. I don't know if I answered your question, but it was a good one.
Droid into the void.
I'm thinking we've just started your next script.
All right. It will sell for a few $1 million, and Jeremy will double that. But you asked me also what my hopes and dreams for SETI, the SETI Institute moving forward. I really think that SETI can lead the way into this new era that we have, because I mean, we're either going to find civilizations, or we're going to find out why no one has why we haven't found them yet in a near future, because we are now at a place where we're of a technological level that that we are interesting, and I would think that there's a place for people who spend their lives searching and knowing what to look for in terms of being able to be the ambassadors to a new era when that intelligence does indeed show itself.
All right. So let me thank, we got a donation from Ron. So thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who's donated so far today. I do have a handful of names that I can share with you. Let's see. There is Robert, Kate, David, Daniel, Jeff, Edson, Julio, Lourdes, Ken, Andreas, Elizabeth, Donald, Stephen, Catherine, Alyssa, Subash, Carl, Jake, Dominique, Pietro, Summer, Sabine, Megan, Tanya, Mirko, Michael, and Margaret. So thank you everybody who has donated so far today. We are very, very grateful for everything that you are supporting us in. And I know Jeremy is thinking about that check he's going to have to write at the end of today. So Jeremy, any last thoughts on Star Wars and this fundraiser that you have wonderfully sponsored today?
I cannot wait to write the check, and there are very few stewards of that money who I find who give me more joy than the team at SETI Institute, and it's been such a privilege to get to know everybody and the scientists behind it. I think about what, unlike other, and I've been involved in nonprofit work for 20 years, and the reason why I choose to support the SETI Institute out of the hundreds in which I've been involved so significantly is because of all the nonprofits out there, it is one which is so tied to our quest as humans and so deeply connected to the thing that drives me every day, to try to find that purpose, find that why. And I honestly believe it's deeply connected to answering how can we prolong, as long as possible, our own answer to the final element of the Drake equation for our species. How we can in fact make sure that we can, not self-annihilate within this space. So, and I don't think it'll be that hard. We have 500,000 followers on Facebook, and SETI's entire budget is about 20 million, most of which comes from research grants, but there's several $1 million. If on May the 4th, everyone who follows SETI gave $4, we could raise $2 million for the SETI Institute. We need to raise about $500,000 of unrestricted funding per year to keep the doors open here at SETI Institute. That's not a huge amount of money. So again, that's $1 from every Facebook follower. So what I would love is if everybody on this call gave what you can. Give $4 for May the 4th. Give 40 if you can. If you want to match $4,000 to help ensure that I spend as much of my money as possible at SETI Institute, I'd love to do that. I also encourage folks to, if they can, donate monthly. I know, Seth, I think we have for the Big Picture Science show that you have, I think there's a Patreon fund that's been set up for that as well. So there's so many incredible things that we do at this organization. And I say this as a volunteer, not paid, just love the Institute. Would love for everyone to join me as much as possible in supporting this quest. And so while we may not have lightsabers and Jedi robes, we have the ability to help support the world's most incredible scientists doing what is potentially the most important work for the future of our species. And that's a great privilege to be able to be a part of it. So I invite everyone to join me, and may the 4th be with you.
One last shout out. I would like to thank Null Denominator on Twitch for a 6-month subscription. Thank you so much. Enjoy your new emotes. You can now use Seth's face, I believe, or I think you can use the question mark. You can use the question mark all you want. So thank you for joining us over there. And thank you everybody for watching today. We are so grateful that you came to see us. We are thankful to everybody who spend a little of their hard-earned cash to help support us. Again, you're supporting our science, you're supporting our outreach, you're supporting us keeping the lights on. Those research grants go to our scientists to keep them working. So the rest of it is so that we can keep talking to you and we can do the SETI work that we love. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, gentlemen, all of you for joining us today. Thank you for your heartfelt words of hope and your joy in Star Wars. Always a pleasure. As you can see, I love my background here. We will be back later this week. We have another SETI Live this Thursday, and that information should be going up today, I believe. And so stay tuned for that. And we will be back soon. The Drake Awards are tomorrow. So if you haven't purchased your ticket, make sure that you do that now. We will be celebrating some outstanding people and in the field of SETI research, as well as some up and coming researchers with our SETI Forward Award. So join us hopefully tomorrow, and we will see you all later. So may the 4th be with you, everyone.
Thank you. It's actually Thursday that your Drake Awards are happening. So
Thursday.
I'm here to help.
That's right. We have everything on one day. I forgot. I keep thinking that we spread it out, but no, we have a SETI Live and we have the Drake Awards all on one day. So
In Zoom world, every day seems the same. So appreciate all your.
It's Blur's Day, everybody.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this. It is a gift to be here, and I'm gonna do it and say, you know what is also a gift? Giving some money to SETI Institute on May the 4th. But I wanted to say hello to the people in Denmark. I lived there when I was a kid, and the people in Colombia. I'm filming a movie there next year, so I'll see you in person, right? Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me host this. This was a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you soon.